This year's June 4th Memorial Day, a Porsche owner in Hong Kong had his car confiscated by the police, but do you know why? It's because his license plate number was US 8964. Yes, you heard it right, it was his license plate number that made him a target. It's like saying, your license plate has 8964, is this a reference to June 4th? It's too dangerous, we have to confiscate your car. Do you know how the police explained it? They said it was because of the owner's embossed license plate and brake issues. Yes, you heard it right, it was the embossed license plate and brakes. This is the funniest thing I have ever heard. It's like saying, your license plate is a bit too prominent, what's this new thing? Your brakes are also not quite right, what's going on? And then they confiscated the car. Can you imagine what kind of logic this is? It's like deciding to demolish someone's house just because you don't like their name. The funniest thing is that the car owner said he was stopped by the police twice last year, but the police eventually let him go. Imagine the scene. The police came over and said, there's something wrong with your license plate number, we need to check it. And then they checked it and found that there was actually no problem, so they let him go. And then it happened again a second time. And then the third time, they finally found a reason, your license plate number is too embossed, and your brakes have problems, we must confiscate your car. To be honest, if I were the car owner, I would probably be very angry. But as an observer, I can only say that this is really too funny. It's like a big joke that makes people laugh and cry. I'm just thinking, if I had a car with a license plate that says, Freedom 8964, would my car also be confiscated? I hope we can face the absurdity of this world with laughter. The June 4th commemoration in Hong Kong has now become a taboo. On June 4th 24 people were taken away on suspicion of disturbing social order and obstructing police officers. Imagine walking on the street and suddenly seeing a police officer walking towards you. You think to yourself, he might be asking for directions. But instead, he says, I'm sorry, your electronic candle may disrupt social order. You need to come with me. It's like saying, I'm sorry, your laughter is too loud, it may cause an earthquake. You need to come with me. Hello everyone, I'm your news anchor Yali, providing you with a one-stop service for China-related news every day. If you have any thoughts or opinions on these topics, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. We will read and reply to your comments seriously. White House National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications Kobe talked about the recent incident where the People's Liberation Army intercepted a U.S. warship at close range in the Taiwan Strait during a routine press conference on June 5. As an old sailor myself, when you do that in such open waters, it is very close, he said, adding that the PLA's actions were unsafe and unprofessional. Broadcasting the fact on radio before taking action clearly indicates that they did it intentionally, he pointed out. He also noted that if the PLA continues to act this way, it won't be long before someone gets hurt. Captain Montgomery of the Canadian frigate Montreal witnessed a Chinese warship dangerously approaching the U.S. warship Chung Hoon at a close distance while the Montreal and Chung Hoon were crossing the Taiwan Strait together. On June 3, the U.S. guided missile destroyer Chung Hoon and the Canadian Royal Navy frigate HMCS Montreal were crossing the Taiwan Strait when the Chinese guided missile destroyer Suzhou approached the U.S. warship Chung Hoon in an unsafe manner. On June 4, Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu defended the actions of Chinese warships intercepting a U.S. warship that was conducting freedom of navigation operations with a Canadian frigate in the Taiwan Strait, saying that the U.S. ship's actions in the Taiwan Strait were hegemonic and provocative. Li said that China has no objection to innocent passage, but must prevent attempts to use freedom of navigation and innocent passage as a tool of hegemony. As tensions between the U.S. and China escalate, some defense officials in the Asia-Pacific region have spoken out, urging the two countries to increase dialogue and warning of the risk of this tension escalating into direct conflict. No agreement was reached between China and the U.S. on the issues raised by Sullivan and Austin. Even the prospect of discussing these issues in depth seems remote. The U.S. wants to establish a security network of its own leadership, while China wants to establish a regional center with Beijing as the new international order. China sees itself as the weaker party and seems to believe that detailed agreements, whether on arms control or regulating military conflicts near its coast, will only help the U.S. maintain its dominant position. In other words, opacity may be advantageous to China. The U.S. released unclear messages on the issue of lifting sanctions on the Chinese defense minister. President Biden had said that the U.S. would negotiate to lift the sanctions on Li Shangfu, but the State Department has made it clear that the sanctions will not be lifted. Political science professor Xia Ming said that the decision to sanction Li Shangfu was made by the Trump administration, and as U.S.-China relations deteriorate during the Biden administration, the deadlock is unlikely to be resolved quickly. Using the Shangri-La dialogue held in Singapore, senior military officials from the U.S. and China presented different visions for the future of Asian security. The risk of accidental conflict between the two countries seems to be on the rise in the geopolitical competition. According to a report by Hong Kong Free Press, a Porsche convertible with license plate number US 8964 was confiscated in Causeway Bay on the 34th anniversary of June 4. The owner of the car said that the police cited his embossed license plate and brakes as the reason for confiscating the vehicle. He said, "This is the first time my car has been confiscated this year. Last year, I was stopped twice by the police before they let me go." He said that his embossed license plate had never been a problem in previous vehicle inspections. Chinese social media continues to delete posts from Western embassies commemorating June 4. The German embassy in China posted a 20-second candlelight video on Weibo on the early morning of June 4, which was deleted about 10 minutes later. The EU delegation to China also posted Edvard Munch's famous painting, The Scream, on its Weibo account, along with the message, "We will not forget, we will always remember those who remember history," which has also been deleted. On Sunday, June 4, the Chinese Foreign Ministry's office in Hong Kong issued a strongly worded statement criticizing the US, Canada, and other countries' consulates in Hong Kong for staging a clumsy political show, attempting to provoke incidents, interfere in Hong Kong affairs, and China's internal affairs. The June 4 commemoration has become a taboo in Hong Kong. On June 4, the Hong Kong police arrested a total of 24 people on suspicion of disturbing social order and obstructing police officers. Paper flowers and electronic candles have become dangerous signals, and even a sports car with the license plate number 8964 has been confiscated. Some of those arrested have stated that they will not stop commemorating despite the regime's intimidation. In addition, the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has expressed shock at the Hong Kong government's actions. Former producer of Hong Kong radio television, Soy Yu Ling, was accused by the Hong Kong government of making false statements when applying for license plate information of those involved in the Yuen Long 721 attack investigation in 2020. Soy Yu Ling appealed for nearly 3 years and was finally acquitted. Former Hong Kong radio television producer Soy Yu Ling, who was investigating the Yuen Long 721 attack during the 2019 Hong Kong anti-extradition bill protests, was previously accused of making false statements when making a documentary by checking vehicle registration information through official channels. On June 5, the Hong Kong Court of Final Appeal overturned this ruling. Soy Yu Ling stated that the most important significance of the Court of Final Appeal's ruling is to confirm the importance of press freedom and freedom of speech. This is a happy event that many Hong Kong people have been waiting for, and protecting freedom of information can protect the development of Hong Kong. The Court of Final Appeal found no reason to exclude news investigations from the other traffic and transportation issues related to Soy Yu Ling's selected vehicle registration information search. On June 5, the U.S. Congressional Executive Commission on China held an event from the Democracy Wall in Tiananmen Square to Seto Bridge to commemorate the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre and China's struggle for freedom. The event will include speeches by House Speaker McCarthy, Chairman Gallagher, House Democratic Leader Jeffries, and dissenters. Both the U.S. and China have sent warships to participate in the 2023 KOMODO 2023 multinational maritime joint exercise near Sulawesi Island in Indonesia from June 5 to June 8. Daniel Kritenbrink, Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, visited China this week. State Department Deputy Spokesperson Patel explained at a regular press conference on June 5 that U.S. and Chinese officials had frank and productive discussions on issues such as human rights and cross-strait issues. This is another senior official in charge of China affairs visiting China after CIA Director Burns' secret visit to Beijing last month. As tensions continue to escalate, the U.S. and Taiwan signed the first batch of agreements under the 21st Century Trade Initiative last week. On June 5, Taiwan's representative to the U.S., Bai Kim Hsiao, held a press conference to express her views on strengthening economic and trade relations between the U.S. and Taiwan and avoiding double taxation. Some scholars have pointed out that Taiwan is expected to reduce its dependence on the Chinese market through relevant agreements with the U.S. The U.S. plans to expand its procurement of EV minerals from Asia and Africa to reduce its dependence on China. As an important mineral for batteries and motors, about 80% of global production depends on China. The Biden administration is discussing mechanisms to expand procurement from Southeast Asia and Africa. Plans such as signing agreements with various countries to treat imported minerals equally with U.S.-produced minerals have emerged. Semiconductors are a focus of U.S.-China confrontation. Samsung's investment in China is limited, forcing the company to expand investment domestically in South Korea, and semiconductor equipment companies urgently need orders from outside of China. Companies such as Applied Materials in the U.S., ASML in the Netherlands, and Tokyo Electron in Japan have set up locations in South Korea. Volkswagen is seeking suppliers worldwide to reduce its dependence on Chinese components for the electric cars it sells in the U.S. and Europe. Other Western automakers are also looking for ways to not rely on China for battery production. These efforts highlight how multinational companies are adjusting as the West tries to reduce its dependence on China. Korean batteries dominate the electric car markets in the U.S. and Europe, two of the three major car markets. In the first quarter of this year, global electric vehicle battery share, excluding China, reached 49%. During the 7 years of discrimination by China, Korean battery companies quickly focused on developing advanced markets in Europe and the U.S., winning dominance. U.S. large companies operating in China once hoped that the post-pandemic prosperity of China would boost global revenue. However, for many companies, this vision has not yet been realized. From chip maker Qualcomm to industrial leader Caterpillar, the China market performance of these U.S. large companies has been weak. The volatility and decline of the Chinese stock market reflects the growing pessimism about China's economic recovery after the pandemic. Economists have lowered their growth expectations. Xi Jinping's recent crackdown on foreign companies has also hurt investor confidence. Global China-related stocks have fallen one after another. Economic data since April has weakened market expectations for the Chinese economy. It is not the 5% growth rate that is a danger to the government's goals, but rather the high threshold that meaningful policies face in the short term. Large infrastructure projects in China's overseas belt and road investments are decreasing, while soft investments in cutting-edge fields such as biotechnology and digital are increasing. Investment in IT, communications, and electronic components is expected to increase sixfold in 2022. The biotechnology field, symbolized by the development of the COVID-19 vaccine, has seen even greater growth. Qianhai, Shenzhen, is a key business district developed by China in recent years, but many companies currently only have a registered address in Qianhai to enjoy policy benefits, and companies that have rented offices have not yet begun operations. The low flow of people makes this special zone within a special economic zone feel a bit deserted. Taiwan's Puchen, the world's largest footwear contract manufacturer, will enter India for the first time. Most of these industry contract manufacturers were the first to enter the mainland in the 1980s and 1990s, and while establishing a low-cost production system, they supported the development of the mainland economy. Labor-intensive industry took root earlier in the mainland and has become the foundation for the development of electronics contract manufacturing industries such as Foxconn. Apple CEO Tim Cook suddenly visited Sony's semiconductor factory in Kumamoto, Japan, which could be a scene of a major shift in Apple's supply chain. Apple has significantly adjusted its assembly process to focus on decentralization, moving away from its strategy of concentrating assembly in China. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, predicts that due to China ending its COVID-19 prevention restrictions earlier than expected, the aviation industry's net profit in 2023 will reach $9.8 billion, twice the previous estimate. Economic uncertainty has not suppressed people's desire to travel, even against the backdrop of rising fuel costs leading to increased airfare prices. Taiwan's political arena has been rocked by a series of sexual harassment scandals. As more and more victims come forward to reveal their experiences of sexual harassment, after the first shot was fired by a former Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, employee on Facebook, there have been 15 more cases reported in just one day on Saturday, June 3rd, and the scandal has spread from the DPP to the Kuomintang. At a symposium on cultural inheritance and development last week, Xi Jinping emphasized that Chinese civilization has outstanding unity, which fundamentally determines that the various ethnic cultures of the Chinese nation are integrated, and even in the face of major setbacks, they are firmly united. This determines the common belief that the country cannot be divided, the state cannot be chaotic, the nation cannot be scattered, and the civilization cannot be broken, and the national unity will always be the core interest of China. Liaoning province in China has declared that it will crack down on political fraudsters, showing that political fraudsters still have a considerable market. Political fraudsters often fabricate their identities, packaging themselves as relatives of senior officials or people with close relationships with leaders, and then deceive power, money, and projects. While cracking down on political fraudsters is important, eliminating the soil that produces political fraudsters gradually is the fundamental solution. The salary gap between high-end IT talents in China and Japan has widened, with China being 70% higher. In 2022, the highest annual salary for data scientists in China is 23.5 million yen, approximately RMB 1.23 million, while in Japan it is 14 million yen. Japanese companies are still stuck in the wage levels of 20 years ago, and those who receive wages are not accustomed to negotiating for a raise. Last year, the average mobile internet user's data usage increased by 10%, but the three major telecom operators' ARPU, average revenue per user, growth was less than 1%. The reason is that 5G has not brought a killer application on the consumption side. On June 4, Chinese Academy of Engineering academician Wu Heiquan stated at the ICT China High-Level Forum held during the China International Information and Communication Exhibition that 5G development has reached a turning point. Thai police on Friday, June 2, seized a large amount of drugs at a bar in Bangkok and arrested and questioned about 50 Chinese tourists. The Chinese embassy in Thailand later called on Chinese citizens in Thailand to stay away from drugs on its official website. The case of a female Peking University student who committed suicide due to being mentally controlled by her boyfriend will be sentenced. Peking University Law School female student Bao Li was suspected of being despised by her boyfriend Mo Muan for not being a virgin. She took poison and committed suicide in October 2019. After being rescued and declared brain dead, she passed away on April 11, 2020. In February 2021, Mo Muan was prosecuted for abuse. Bao Li's mother accused Mo Muan of not wanting to break up and continuously mentally torturing Bao Li, while Mo Muan claimed that he did not understand what mental control was. After the Chinese online community website Tianya Community suspended operations in April, the former head planned to restart Tianya by raising funds through live streaming, but after 7 days and nights of live streaming, less than RMB 150,000 was raised. To prevent university students from violating rules by taking the college entrance examination or taking the exam for others, the Shandong Provincial Department of Education stipulated that university students should not leave school during the college entrance examination. That's today's news briefing. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode. Take care everyone.